Step into the realm of limitless imagination with Beyond the Art, where Indigenous creativity knows no bounds. Join us on a captivating journey through Indigenous art and innovation.
Together, let's delve into the depths of imagination, pushing boundaries with guests from diverse sectors of the Native American art world, each sharing their unique creative vision and inspiring journeys.
Join us for exclusive interviews, thought-provoking discussions, and uplifting stories. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Craig Beaumont Flynn.
Hi, and I'm Joe Williams.
And welcome to Beyond the Art. And today we have with us Jessica Harjo. Hi, Jessica.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, welcome to the show. Well, why don't you just go ahead and share a bit about your background and what initially drew you to art and design?
I grew up around art because my dad's an artist. My dad is Ted Moore Jr. and he's dealing with acrylics and oils. So I always saw canvases around and loved the colors. He's always been a really big, broad color user. Just very. If you imagine an Oklahoma sunset, those are the colors that he uses all the time, and I've been really drawn to them my whole life. So the art that I do now is often very colorful, or it's stripped down to black and white usually. And
just like the Oklahoma landscape, either we're very colorful or we're black and white.
So and beyond just growing up, I grew up culturally in Osage Nation ways and Pawnee ways, and also Otoe ways. They're all in the same area in Oklahoma, and I have a large family in each one of those tribes. So all of my art is influenced by the traditional motifs and designs, applique, geometrics, ribbon work. You can see that in the work that I do now, but it's a result of just growing up in it. Being immersed in what I considered normal growing up, and seeing all the time, and loving the colors that were worn in traditional dances or at powwows and other areas. And I started to see a fusion of this into contemporary wear, or I guess really realizing it after college. And I think that is just because it's just been a rise on social media. Technology definitely has a way of highlighting stuff beyond your initial community. So I went to college initially for landscape architecture, and then that went into graphic design and design. And that's where I learned the base skills of what I do.
Well, you mentioned your cultural roots and your heritage actually influences your work. So when you started your craft and becoming an artist, was that something you wanted to gravitate to and pull into your craft as you developed it? Or it was just something that naturally came because of your DNA and your upbringing?
I think it was a little bit of both. It became naturally when I'm just sketching. If you're like in high school, you're sketching on your notebook. They're naturally forms that are derived from my cultural background, which can be really floral, really ornate, or it can be really geometric. So I've always used or fused the use of both of those directions, and coming up with forms and developing designs for t-shirts or fabric or whatever comes out of my mind.
So what are some of the other key elements and symbols from your cultural background that you incorporate into your designs, and what meaning do you have to you that you're trying to translate to the viewer?
I always try to, if I'm thinking of representing something directly of like Osage Nation for whatever reason, I will use the idea of how reverse applique is constructed in ribbon work, the traditional ribbon work that you see on Osage men's straight dance suits and Osage women's blankets and wool skirts. You'll see that, that strip, and you'll see the geometrics, but it also can get really floral, and if you go back in time. But what I do now, when I am designing a piece, it's all original. I might have influences where you can say like, oh, that kind of looks Osage, but that's new, is just because I do see the importance of contemporary artists today in making our place in history as we see it now, and those reflections as artists that we can contribute to the rest of the world.
So you have your own firm, and I want to make sure I pronounce it correctly. Is it Weomepe?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I got it right. Is it Osage?
It's actually Otoe.
Oh, is
Uh,
it?
yeah, I'm enrolled
I,
Otoe. Like I said, I kind of grew up in the middle of all those tribal reservations, and the areas in which the tribal headquarters are within 30 minutes of each other. Pawnee, Otoe,
right.
and Osage. I'm from the Gray Horse District, so that's Fairfax, Oklahoma.
So
Um,
what inspired you to start Weomepe Designs, and what does the name Weomepe signify to you, and actually signify and mean?
yeah, so Weomepe is my Otoe name that was given to me when I was the Otoe tribal princess, about 20 years ago, when
Just
I was
yesterday.
younger. Um, and it translates to one that can do anything, one that's able to do anything. And when I was starting my company, my business, graphic design businesses, it started out just needing a name. And I was at a point in a time where my classmates, when they're developing their graphic design businesses in college, were just putting their names in it, as placeholder, and not really getting too creative. So I used that name at that time, and it just kind of stuck, and it made sense over time. Even more so now in my work, where I'm just kind of doing a lot of different things, interdisciplinary art work, it really makes sense.
So you are staying true to the name, one that does everything.
Yeah. I chose to keep it. It started as like a college project. Like, what would you call your firm if you were to develop one? And I was like, well, it'll be this. And then that kind of, I used it in real life and still using it. About 12, about 12 years now.
So what's the evolution of Weomepe Designs from its inception to now?
Um, it's a little tornado developing all the time.
It's Oklahoma.
Yeah, it started out like a class project. You set up your business plan and go from there. But originally, I was solely 100% into freelance graphic design work. So I did a lot of logo development, T-shirt designs, resource development, and I worked professionally as a graphic designer in house and freelance through that company, my Weomepe Designs. And then after I graduated, I got my PhD in design from University of Minnesota. I went on to teach as a professor for a couple of years, and I found being in that space didn't really give me a lot of time to be creative on my own, and so I stopped teaching and just kind of went 100% into my business, which at that time was still doing graphic design work, freelance work, but it also started to develop into jewelry design. And that was another project that started in grad school, developing jewelry and using the laser cutter as a tool to expand beyond the digital realm of computer development. So I was really interested in learning how does not only graphic design but digital art, how is that developed, and how can that be in the real world and translate through all these other mechanisms like sculpture, architecture, fabric design, jewelry design, and I'm doing all of those now. And it started as an exploration, but it has developed into something that like, oh, hey, like, yeah, if I'm asked to do something, if I'm not able to, or I have never done it before, then I love to figure those things out and make it happen, or learn how to accomplish something with the skills that I have.
So, from the inception of starting your own business, what are some of the biggest challenges and rewards of running your own design business?
Um, Challenge and reward is the same thing as running, just having the freedom to call your own shots, I guess. Make your own schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But the challenge in that is making that schedule, right? Making sure that you do allow time to for yourself, for your self care.
Preservation.
That's a great self care and self preservation. And I'm also a mom. I have a 5-year-old, so I want to make sure I have time to devote to him. So I've learned, over the years to be able to say no to some projects that may not um, fit in. I could crunch it in, but in the long run, is that project really worth the time that it takes away from myself and from my family? Um, and then just learning how to weigh those options, and it's taken years to do that. In the beginning, say yes to everything, right? Say yes, I'll do it.
Sure.
Yes, you need to make time for it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's both itself a reward and a challenge, because you take these opportunities and it leads you to different things, and you just have to learn which opportunities you do take and don't take. And sometimes you're wrong, sometimes you're right, and you learn from it.
Right.
Hmm. So I think about this, and a couple of questions about your artistic process. Uh, your work has been described as like a post-traditional and is grounded in cultural symbolism. Can you elaborate on what post-traditional means to you?
It's trying to make that stick to describe contemporary Native art. um, no, yeah, it's post traditional. Labels are a big thing when you get into the art world, right? And
Mm-hmm.
specifically when you are talking about Native American art, is it that whole debate? Is it Native American art if you don't say it's Native American art? Just because a Native American made it, can it not just be art? Does it have to be categorized as Native American art?
True.
And when it
Yeah.
is categorized as Native American art, it's often thought to be in a traditional sense. So we're, talking about this expansion and just like expanding the mindset into the idea of contemporary Native art. What does that look like? Um, what can it be, and what kind of spaces can Indigenous artists fill in today's society? Um, and so oftentimes being labeled as traditional or contemporary, there's a lot of, outside from those two labels. Post traditional to me just means like it may still be traditional in the sense that we live today,
True.
but it is not so much contemporary where it's completely modern, the definition of contemporary, but it's not solely traditional as in from the past. And so there's, I think, just further definitions that can be applied to Native American arts. There's different areas in which Indigenous artists develop, and especially with technology being a tool today. So that's kind of where my work has been focused in, and highlighting those areas that deserve the conversation to be inclusive.
Well, absolutely. How do you choose the themes and elements for your pieces, such as traditional river work and nature motifs?
I kind of just let it develop organically. I will sketch, if I am doing, I often start with flowers. Honestly, I kind of work with shapes and blending of shapes. And if a floral comes from that, great. If a geometric flower comes from that, awesome. And then blending the two and just kind of manipulating it. I explain to my students, like when you're developing and sketching directly in the computer, it's the same process as, molding something in clay. So
Yeah.
clay is like a putty, and you're molding it, and you're just kind of using your hands and your brains guiding, and something comes, you may not have an actual plan, or you might have the plan. It's the same way using the tool of digital art. If you're drawing directly in the computer, or on a pad, or on a sketch, and scanning that and tracing it. However, it is able to be manipulated and molded in the computer as well. So that's kind of what I do. I start with a shape, and I bring it into the computer, and that shape kind of just organically evolves, and maybe it does take on a symmetric form, so that it does kind of mimic or represent what you see in Osage designs, or Otoe designs, or Pawnee designs, or just in general sense, the reciprocity, or the repetition of elements, or the representation or idea of this is what it's alluding to. I don't really do direct taking from art. I just kind of create my own stuff, and then mesh that into all these different worlds. So as a graphic designer, everything that I've created mostly is grounded in that digital art world. So that, like, my jewelry that I create is all designed digitally, and then it's printed or cut in the laser. Or when I do fashion design, all of my fabrics I design in the computer, and then I print that fabric, and then have it made into garments or wearable art.
So I'm a big fan of Procreate on iPad. It's something I use. When you're sketching, what is the program that you find yourself using?
I'm mainly an Illustrator,
Yeah.
Adobe Illustrator.
Adobe Illustrator? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Can you walk us through your creative process from that initial concept to a finished piece, for example?
So like I said, I'll usually kind of sketch, and I'll be in the Illustrator. I have Procreate. I just have never really gotten into it. I know there's a lot of things you can do.
Mhm.
I collaborate a lot with my sister, who's also a graphic designer, and she uses Procreate quite often, and she's more of an illustrator. For the shapes and everything that I do a lot of repetitions. I really like using Illustrator. That goes into the real end items, right? If I'm creating a skirt or a dress that someone's going to wear in a fashion show, then that whole process goes before that's made into development. For jewelry, same thing. If I'm doing a jewelry release that's done in metal or acrylics, or making like necklaces and stuff, because I do those things too. I will start with a shape, and have the shapes repeated, and that starts from sketch. So it all kind of goes through the same process, no matter what I'm doing. It starts in the sketch, and the sketch just comes from playing with the forms.
Well, talking about fashion, Weomepe Designs has been featured in numerous fashion shows. Can you share some highlights from your experience at the Indigenous New York Fashion Week?
Well, I did not go to New York.
You didn't? I'm sorry.
Okay. I was asked to go, and the organization that asked me to go was just really bad at communication, and I had no details leading up, even 2 weeks before we're supposed to go, and so I ended up pulling out at the last.
Oh, okay.
There was no contract signed. I had no models given to me, and it's just really, unprofessional. The organization that had asked me, and so when you're doing something like that, it has to be right. It has to be. You're on this area where you should be putting your every moment into doing your best and creating the best work that you can show at this stage in New York City. And with that time frame and without information, a really big step in creating fashion is you know who's going to wear it. Sometimes you know your models, or you're given a certain list of models to choose from, or you have a general idea and you give a list to the coordinator, say, I need a model size medium, to fit this look. And without that adequate time to prepare, it becomes really difficult sometimes with the stuff that I do. Other times, you make it work, but at that level, I didn't want to make it work, But I have been asked to be out there a couple more times, and I chose not to. I just feel like it has to be right. I have to be in the right space where I'm just like fully into like this fashion and I want to like show it.
Right. All the dots have to connect.
Yeah. You've got to feel right, and that's a thing where I had to say no at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So just the opportunity was there. It's a great opportunity, but it just didn't align with the time that I need and my priorities, I guess, at that time.
There's such a spotlight now, finally, on Indigenous and Native American artistry, from film, fashion, music, the crafts. What do you think sets Indigenous fashion apart in the broader fashion industry?
Since the release of the Killers of the Flower Moon, there's been more interest in Osages, and there have been people like wanting to see an Osage. How do I see an Osage? Where do I go to see one?
You're all waving hands. Hello.
Yeah, like I want to go to the reservation and see one. Where do I go? Is it out in the country? Can I find one there? And that's how people think of us sometimes, and
Mm-hmm.
it's out of ignorance or whatever. So I think Native American fashion, especially today, and being able to elevate different artists and their art on people, it works in two ways. It says that we're contemporary peoples, and we live with everybody else in the world, and we wear fashion and we create fashion. It isn't always traditional. We don't always just dance at powwows in our grandmother's clothes or wear buckskin all the time. We do wear regalia, at these special times, tribal dances and powwows and such, and special moments. But that's not what we wear every day. What do we wear every day? Now we have amazing crafts and amazing contemporary, post-traditional fashion designers that are creating amazing things that we can wear every day. And we can utilize that to, help strengthen the identity of who we are and where we come from. And just it's just a cool way to say like, hey, we're talented too, in a sense too. If you're thinking about in the fashion world, we have so many great Native American artists out there in the world: jewelry, accessories, fashion arts, clothing, all kinds of stuff. So.
Sure.
I think about placemaking that you're doing, and you have several notable public art installations. Can you tell us about the process and significance of the People of the Great Sky, Constellations of the Land, at the Oklahoma State Capitol, which I've been to, and it's a beautiful space.
Great. Be in these type of spaces and indigenize them in a way, to not only put that on my resume, and that's a great thing, but also just have that visibility to everybody. The greatest thing of that piece, and I realize I didn't really talk about the concept, but the greatest thing to me is like on that opening, we had an opening reception, and my son was 4 at that time, and he walks in, and kids notice every little thing, and he walks in and he just like looks up, he's just like, wow, I love it.
Best response ever.
Wow. Yeah.
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 And it was just like, that's your art, and growing up, I never had that. We didn't have the opportunity or, I guess, the awareness if there were art pieces like that done by Native artists in these public spaces, these government buildings.
True.
Where you walk in and you don't see any type of Indigenous representation anywhere. And how does that make you feel as a Native American little kid? And I think the more opportunities that we have to indigenize spaces, I think that comfort level of youth in today's society leads to more confidence in who they are, because we face stereotypes every day, and we face racism every day, and unfortunately, like suicide has one of the highest level for our teenage Native American youths.
Right.
And that, I think, just changing the space through art of common places, not only in museums, not only in a Native American classroom or a specified Native American space, but in the public art area. I think that just has the ripple effect that can save lives, ultimately, give self-esteem and boost confidence and boost awareness. It's just those little things that take effect in a little kid's mind can be beautiful, by doing those little things.
I love these conversations where you sort of roll into the answers to the next questions that we're going to ask.
She's cute.
I know, right? Yeah, because my question was about what message do you hope to convey through your public art and your murals?
It's not. It's first. It's like, we exist. This is something we can do, but beyond that, like. We're an amazing population.
It's representation, as you mentioned before, as you kind of commented and mentioned, growing up, we didn't see representation as prolific as we see now in all various types of forms. So it's nice to see, like your son, something to identify that someone's Native and Indigenous that create this, and kind of connect to.
So how do you approach designing pieces that are meant for public spaces compared to more personal or commercial work?
Well, I've sort of, I learned a lot through when I was freelance graphic designer, and I'm still doing freelance work, but it's not 100%. When I was 100% freelance graphic design work, everything when you're doing that type of work is doing art for other people. And so you take other people's ideas and what they want, and you use your artistic style to develop something for them. After doing that for so long, I think, what was your question? I'm getting off on a tangent.
No, I was asking your approach to the designing art that's meant for public spaces compared to your personal or commercial works. Like how do you approach designing pieces? Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of, take some of that decision-making process into public art. Public art, I've never really been too much different from just creating my own art and putting it into the spaces. You do have to think about, especially with that art piece in the state capitol, I didn't want it to be, just solely one tribe. They did ask me to represent all 39 tribes of Oklahoma, which is pretty impossible to do.
Right. That's a big ask. Yeah.
I designed it in a way where it would resonate with hopefully any Indigenous person that came into that space, that they would recognize it as, one of our own. Somebody Indigenous made this. Someone Native did this. Could you tell that an Osage artist did that? Probably. There's some Osage art in there, and there's some florals that specifically sort of represent the way florals are constructed in Southern tribes.
Are there any upcoming projects that you're most excited about?
November through the beginning of February this past year in Tulsa off of Peoria and 11th. And we wanted the whole goal of that space was to provide a store, a retail space for other Native fashion artists to sell their products outside of the online space. So what we're seeing a lot of is, and I've talked and I've been in these circles of other artists where everyone's selling on Etsy or they're posting on Facebook and trying to sell items, and sometimes selling online isn't as great because someone's not touching and feeling or
Correct.
looking at it in this true form. And everyone wants to have an in-store retail space for themselves, right? So the idea with that project is to provide a space where this past year we had about 35 artists participating, and they would bring stuff and sell their stuff at the store, and so they have a space to have that devoted to their arts. So with that, this past month we were asked to set up another store at the Museum of Broken Arrow, and we didn't, because we were asked to fill a space within a short amount of time, about 2 weeks, and we didn't have enough time to set up a whole store. But they did have a gallery space. So what we ended up doing was basically curating a gallery space full of like mannequins and things on hangers and photos, like freeze modeling and accessories. So that's currently live. It goes through July 15th. And that's just a little preview of what we want to do at a larger scale. So we want to, and we do have plans. I can't really talk about them right now, but we do have plans on doing a large scale gallery exhibit in 2025 and 2026. And we will do another holiday pop-up store in Tulsa this fall, this holiday season. So we will make those announcements. And we're really just excited on continuing that idea. And right now it is just a holiday pop-up shop because we don't have the funding to make it a year-round store and hire people in the space and the building space. But that's where we want to be eventually. So this was our first year starting out. Second year we'll do another pop-up. Third year is probably going to be another pop-up.
So how do you balance the various aspects of your career, from creating art to running a business to teaching?
Well, I don't teach anymore, so that's out.
So that's out. Okay.
I did enjoy teaching, and I will teach a class here and there. It takes a lot of time away from what I'm doing now, so it's a time management thing with me. But I'll do lectures, I'll do guest speakers, and I not this past year, but the previous 3 years, I was sitting on like a capstone committee where I'm brought in to critique senior level work. And so stuff like that, where I'm still connected to the education settings, is something that I do prioritize and make sure that I'm connected in some way to academia, but also, just balancing that with work and life and community service and just living. Like I said, it just has taken time to really get there. Prioritizing myself and my family first and our needs, and it may not see me at every single fashion show, and that's why. That's because I don't have the time allotted because I'm spending time with my family or something.
Right.
And I think that's really important. The way Native fashion is going, there's always going to be something to take part in. So, but your children, your home life is always going to change,
Right.
especially with a little boy that I have.
Keeps you
My
on your
son.
toes.
Yeah. That no matter what, everyone say that it goes by fast, and it does.
Yeah. Before we go, could you share a personal story or an experience that's profoundly impacted your work?
Um, I have several, but I think it has been part of just traveling outside of Oklahoma and meeting different people, also in the same line of work that I'm doing, and seeing what they're doing with the same tools that I'm using. Uh, I think learning from others and collaborating is a very, very important thing that an artist should do and should strive to do, because um, you often are just stuck in your own little bubble, and you may learn by watching videos or by doing, but you can learn a lot from other people. um, and it's changed the way that I've seen the world, specifically with just like working with other people in grad school, because uh, people do ask me, like, what's the value of grad school, what's the value of going to graduate school beyond getting your bachelor's. And one of the values that I always tell people is just like, you get to collaborate with others, and you get to see how their people's minds work. It's a beautiful thing just to see other creative people. When you're in your master's and your PhD, you're surrounded with people that are doing the same thing as you. All right, we're all mastering our level of expertise, and there are different pillars within the design world that, oh man, they're so amazing. I had classmates that was doing research in wearable technology with like firefighter gloves, like having them to design like sensors so they can feel when they're doing work, and going into like 3D printing and that whole area, laser cutting, and the ability that has to lend to other types of things like creating toys for kids and communities that don't have access to that type of material. That's what I did with my dissertation. I worked with the Osage Nation um, Immersion School and the Wajaji Early Learning Academy to create stencils, because our Osage language orthography is not comprised of Latin characters, or the English alphabet.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I did that work at that time, you go visit these classrooms, and everything is described in English, and we have this orthography. But if you and it's all printed materials from the computer. If you go into an American classroom, a pre-K classroom, they have all these toys that are ABCs. They have magnets that are ABCs. Right. They have these learning materials, and so that was part of my project. The work that I did, I was creating these stencils for children to learn and for teachers to utilize to make materials for the classrooms. Other people was doing other things to represent their individual cultures. I had a lot of international student, how art might be helpful in representing how art can lead to combating global racism. It's just like, how does that work in this broader thinking outside of our own lives and our own community and our own country? That was life-changing, and it was kind of cool just giving that presentation and having like 5 translators across the room translating in 5 different languages the talk that I spoke. When does that happen? When does a translation occur of indigenous thoughts, indigenous arts, and given to other people that can't speak English? So that was an amazing opportunity. I almost didn't do it just because traveling abroad was scary at that time. And it was kind of scary there. I'm not going to lie, but I'm glad I did it because it just expanded the way I thought about the world in another way, and how art can influence the way people think.
True. If people lean forward, as I say, you learn a lot, you know. I think
Yeah.
people are reluctant at times to lean forward and listen and learn from each other. Well, Jessica, it's been an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show today. We want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
This was fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Indigenous art and creativity. Stay inspired and keep exploring with us on Beyond the Art.
Remember to subscribe and follow us for more exclusive interviews, insightful discussions, and stories that ignite your artistic imagination.
Until next time, continue to unlock your limitless potential with Beyond the Art. Thank you for listening.